Welcome. This is the Domain Name Law Show. We're here every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. This is where we discuss domain name legal news and recent UDRP decisions, which are domain disputes. So thanks for being here. We have three hosts of the show. My name is Todd Ryan. My co-hosts are David Michaels and Jeff Neuman. Hey, David, how's everything going today? I thought there might be some issue with that. David appeared to be on stage for a second. Let's get him back up here. Jeff is in New York handling some business. It's legal business. Got to handle it. So he'll be joining us next week. But let me tell you, a lot of stuff going on. Domain disputes. So not just in UDRPs, but also court cases. We're going to be talking about a few things there. But hey, how's everything going, David? Is everything pretty cool there in Toronto area?
Cool is the word. It froze overnight. 2 nights ago, actually. It's, cold is back.
Yeah, I saw that. And I know a lot of snow at my farm in the Midwest. My mom lives in Speedway, Indiana, too. A lot of snow. Very thick snow. Thick. Thick like my hair in 1975. All right, David, we got a lot of stuff I wanted to cover today. I did see a post on, of course, I saw several posts on X. One, that DOMA is starting a podcast today, the DOMA protocol, that's D3 Crew, and they're going to start it in an hour from now. So I'll try to get done today in about an hour. So I can jump over there. I want to hear what they're going to be talking about. I'm sure it's tokenization and the DOMA blockchain and all sorts of stuff. But I really, not only do I like those guys, they're all friends, colleagues of mine, and I'll be at the Dominion conference in Las Vegas that they put on each year. It's at April 29th, April 30th. Like I said, I think I don't know. I'm going to do something on stage. He knows he can't keep the microphone out of my hands. Of course, I probably won't give too much of my opinions because they want smarter people to talk, but I like to be the go-between, the host, the moderator, the MC. So look forward to that. But anyway, so that's today, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Pacific. So that's 4 p.m. Eastern. After this show, it's you can see at Doma Protocol is their X handle, and they're going to be doing something. It's their first. It's called Doma on Air. I look forward to just checking that out. Thanks for being here. If you want to check out our outline, you can at dnlshow.com/outline. Well, today, interesting cases, but some interesting stories too. Matter of fact, before we get to the story, I have mixed feelings on a topic I don't have on the outline, but I'm going to bring it up and we're going to talk about it Thursday. At least I am, over on the DNX show that I do with Josh. Some topics, people don't like to talk about. This one was the unstoppable. Matt, the CEO over there, posted, yeah, so we're fucking all on Web 2 now. We're not Web 3, which, like I said, I have mixed feelings. I'm not mad at a company saying, hey, we used to only sell pork, now we're selling beef because fucking we were going out of business selling whatever it was. And, but got a lot of, I don't know, they had a lot of customers who were used to, the other products they were selling, these Web3 domain names, if you want to call them that, or I forget what else the people were calling them, but Web3 names, because Arif, it reminds me, he doesn't like to use the word domains. But anyway, pretty much a shift. So then they get a lot of people in the Web2 space saying, oh, good move. And I saw even Rosner saying, about time I invested in this thing. I'm glad I did it. And then I thought Shane posted, basically, hey, congratulations. And then if you get all these people that had spent all their money and supported the fucking place, which sometimes they appeal to me, like the early investors in the company help propping it up. It's always like the first wife. And then it's like, now we got a second wife, and the first wife, yeah, that's cool. But yeah, no, we're trying not to, Anyway, so David, did you hear about, really it's nothing we knew was going on, but it's weird, the CEO making a post, and there's so much money spent, and so much support they got from customers on these Web3 names and the support they got for years, and now to sort of leave them out in the cold, Any thoughts you have on that?
I had no idea about that change, but I thought I just saw an ad for a Web3 name like a couple of weeks ago from Unstoppable. So that's sudden. That's like a big change. But I never got any. I'm not interested. I don't even have a wallet, so I don't even know how to use Web3.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody did point that out that they were offering a Web3 name .xai or something. I have no idea because they're weird, the names. Even if it was .crypto and remember .coin, .wallet, there was a lawsuit on. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm always siding with the public, thinking, yeah, I know companies have their right to do it. That's what I run as companies. Okay, so we're gonna do what we want. Except, I mean, basically, if you're the boss and it's a private company and there's no board, you can make decisions, whatever decisions you want. But yeah, like I said, I'm torn. Because I like when companies adjust. Say now the word pivot. I hate everything that's new. I like 1970s. I like the fucking ABA. Okay, but which is a great uh, series about the ABA called Soul something on Netflix. But the I got to say, and I guess we're recorded. Yeah. So Matt, I don't know well enough. I don't know. I was always like, I don't. It's hard for me to read the guy. Not that I didn't trust him. I was like, I don't know. Brady, I really like. I mean, so much because I think he's just bright and he's really learned a lot about registrars, registries, domain name investing, everything that we deal with, us, and even domain name law, and but I'm not a fan of Sandy at all, whoever that was. I remember seeing her at conferences, thinking, "The fuck is she saying?" And she's at every conference, and everybody talks her up, of course, on that. But I'm like, this person, which you could, her knowledge, I don't know. I thought you could fit it in a thimble. Yeah, I'm rude. I don't care. So I wasn't a fan. So anyway, and now all that talk was bullshit anyway. We're going to make sure that these things have utility. Anyway, we're going to talk more about that. I'm going to talk about it whenever the frig I want to talk about it. But domain investing topics is what we do on Thursday. That's the DNX show. That's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. David, I can mention it here. I think you're going to find this interesting. So you're familiar with the Beanstalk Challenge, right? That Rick has going.
Oh yeah, build out a site, and you get a Bentley, one of his Bentleys,
Yeah, dude.
convertible one
Yeah,
actually. I
it's.
wish
I
I could.
think it's
I
his
could.
only
I would
Bentley.
actually join in
Yeah,
if I could drive a Bentley convertible.
yeah, and
But go ahead.
I'm like an old guy too. That looked like an old West Palm Beach kind of rich guy car. But the guys on DNX, Josh, and it was there. If I can't remember who, I don't know if there was a few other member people saying, it's an old. It's only that's worth only like 35,000, 50,000. It's not $150,000. I think it's worth more than 35. It's got 6,500 miles. I know it's a 2010. I got a 2013 Audi. That's a fucking kick ass car. Okay, that's why I keep that one. It's a fucking A7 supercharged. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't. So 2010 is not old at all to me. Now, to people that get new cars every year, I can understand. But anyway, yeah, I like a reason to go to Miami, and yeah, when if they're giving away a car, who I'm up for it. Okay, yeah, I'll take it. So I am up for it, David. I reached out to Rick and I said, here's the domain that I want to um, develop out. I'm going to do something with it. It's not what you think I'm going to do with it, Rick. you know. And he's like, "You're the man." So he posted it. He posted the name that I'm going to be working on, and I'm going to work on it hard too on LinkedIn. I don't know if he's posted it on X yet, but he has updated the name servers, so I'm already in. David, I'm going to give you a hint, and I'm going to see if you can guess the domain name. It's a four-letter. It's pronounceable, and well, that's all I want to give you right now. And then I'll give you a third hint, and I think it'll tip it off. But do you have any idea?
Cana,
What'd you say?
Cana, CANA. Is
No,
that what you
fuck
got?
no. Excuse my language. Okay, I'll give you another hint because we don't have all the time in the world. It's something a lot of people suck on.
Well, that
Okay,
would be like a pot lollipop or something, but it's
you
more
don't
than
want to
four
say it.
letters,
Okay,
so
I'll
I don't
say
know.
it. Dick.com. So I'm the one that gets to develop out Dick.com. People wonder, what are you going to do with it? Well, you can go to it now. Right, this we can't have just landing pages, but I can do what I want until we, have it ready to roll instead of having it go nowhere. So that is the domain I'm working with. You can see on Rick's, X page here, Betty AI Project is his handle, and he lists here's who Chad, my partner in Pay Now. He's working on venture jointventures.com, perps.com. I don't know what he's going to do with perps.com. He's got a couple others, but he selected like four. This one guy has selected like 11. I don't know. Rick's letting people do what they want. And then you'll see basically, so there's like 18 founders is Rick calls them. And that's like the initial 18. But anyway, the initial 18 people, it may not be, 18 names. Because like I said, one guy's going to develop about AC repair, breakfast bars, fucking pool repair. I don't know. It's kind of setting up a bunch of lead gen sites. What I was before I got involved myself, yeah, I was like, this is, I'm skeptical, critical. Because I'm like, some of these sites, these guys are setting up already and it's got a bunch of testimonials. You know how people do, David? They'll set up a website brand new and then it's got 30 testimonials and they're all fake. Well, that's what was happening with AC repair and pool repair. So yeah, since I'm on dick.com, I'm going to be a dick about it too. And I'm going to call out not just folks at the domain space, but I mean in any space. And at that award show last night, was it last night? 2 nights ago. But the point is, yeah. So we're off and running. All of us are off and running. Really, March 15th was, I guess, the launch, but you don't really start until Rick changes your name servers and you agree to his terms, which I don't know what the terms are. Basically, he can snatch it back from you anytime he wants. I guess I don't even know that. But yeah, so now we're tight. Me and Rick are tight. Me and Rick Schwartz, Domain King, doing in business together. I said, I saw his dick and I knew I had to have it. There's so many jokes to do with the dick, but okay, but I'm not doing anything adult. All right, so we're going to get to our show today, Domain Name Law. Like I said, we're here every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Our other host, Jeff Neuman, is doing some legal business in New York. He's an ass kicker. The more I get to know, the more I realize it. So he'll be back with us next Tuesday. I have some more comments about reaching out to me and Jeff if you're doing anything with the new gTLD round. But first, our first piece of news, David. I think we'll go on this fast, and then I want to talk with you about the copyrightable materials topic, because the first thing I had on our outline today at dnlshow.com/outline is ICANN locks in key contract for 2026 gTLD round. And basically what it is, it's a new registry agreement. So the existing registries they sort of grandfather in some of these rules, meaning they don't, from what I understand, don't have to abide by all the new registry rules according to this new contract. And the reason I say that, I'm going to get with Jeff and go through this. It's very important because we're creating registries in the next round by helping companies apply and successfully obtain their string, and then we help manage their registry. Well, I'm familiar with a lot of the rules, but this is a pretty big deal because they've changed a few things. And one thing they've changed, David, and I need to be clear on this because it's I can't say huge, but I was trying to find out. So what would affect domain investors and what would they be interested in? Well, there's at least a 30-day written notice to all registrars. This is coming from the registry. If there's any price increase, okay, they've had to do that before, but they're really clear now that says, if you're removing a discount or a rebate or any type of program, you need to do it, even if it was, listed as this is a special. And they must allow registrations for a period of 1 to 10 years, which that doesn't change. What does change is that in here it says uniform renewal pricing. So renewal price must be uniform across all domain renewals. So that means a registry can charge for a premium name, but all renewals need to be universally applied. Well, that is not the case now. So I need that to be clarified. That's what it says, but I just can't imagine. I mean, so everybody new is going to have to abide by it. When would existing registries have to abide by it? But do you think that's a good idea, David? They can still have premiums, but then have
Oh,
a standard renewal? What's your thoughts?
yeah, 100%. Not having standard renewal fees just killed that whole aftermarket. I even like dropped some of my own names like Michael.app because they raised the renewal fee to $45 a month. Sorry, a year. I think my diet domain went up to $110 a year. That was just ridiculous. So I just dropped it. I stopped investing in gTLDs because of that specific reason. Can't build a website, can't build a business on that if they keep on changing our renewal prices. Even .org is going up now, but that's at least up across the board.
Yeah, what we're talking about quickly is, and there's a link to it. And next week when Jeff gets back, we'll have, really get into something like this a little bit more. It's not, I think it's super exciting. I don't know about, you know, regular domain investors, but some things that are important that, yeah, what Dave was talking about, it's a 180-day notice for a renewal price increase. This is coming from the registry. So the registry really just has to give this information to the registrar. The registrar is the one who deals with the public. So there's a 30-day notice before a written notice to all registrars for any price increase. But if it's a renewal price increase, they need a 180-day notice. And there's a couple exceptions. If below, if it's required, if the renewal price is at or below a previously fully noticed price okay. So if it's lower, they don't have to. And then no notice needed for the pass through of the ICANN variable registry level fee. Okay, we'll talk about this. So basically, next week when I have some clarification on this, I was looking at it, but most importantly was this uniform renewal pricing. If that's the case, then I think I think it's great because then a registry really has to decide: do we want our renewals to be $50 a year across the board? Because we may want to have lower registration prices, even though I said they can have premium names, but uh, it's just I think it'd be wonderful to have uniform renewal pricing. So we'll maybe dive into that a little bit next week. But I have the link if you want to go and look at the actual new document, the new registry contract. I'm going to have to go through it even more closely, but I'll do that with Jeffrey. Um, the second article, and then we're going to try to get through, like I said, get through things pretty quickly today because at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, I see Fred over at D3 is doing a show called the Doma on Air, and today's their first show. We may not always be able to cut it off at 1, but today I want to try. I'm going to jump over there and see what they're going to talk about and how they're launching that show. But the second article, really, I got it, and it wasn't correct on the outline, the link. I corrected that, David. But it was really because of a topic you brought up before, and that was about AI content is not copyrightable. So can you explain what this Supreme Court decision, basically their decision was to not make a decision, what this means, if anything, about AI material being copyrightable, and really what is the rule currently? What is the law currently? Thanks.
So if you were to generate an image, for example, using Nano Banana or GPT and say, okay, design me a horse that's brown and it's galloping across a field. And make it photorealistic. That is not copyrightable because it's just a generic instruction. There is no real creativity on your part to give it that command. And so the output will be different if you generate it and I generate it and the next guy generates it. So that is not going to be copyrightable. But if you have a really detailed prompt with all kinds of factors that a photographer would take into account, that would generate a specific image that might be copyrightable. If you were to have a written article that's edited with AI, or the first draft is done with AI, and then it's AI assisted, but you've made a lot of edits, so you contributed a lot of content to it or perspectives, then that is copyrightable. But anything that's 100% generated by AI, if you just say explain X to me and it gives you like a blob of text, that's not copyrightable. Same thing for music. So is that complicated, or is that you know?
Well, I wanted to say to everyone, for those who aren't super familiar with copyrights, copyrights are usually they usually protect original works, say like David said in writing and literary stuff in books. Okay, so books, movies, songs, definitely photographs, paintings. I see Bradley, sculptures, you know, architectural designs, stuff like that. Even software code now is copyrightable. So those are common examples. Now, um, there's, well, what we're talking about here now. So a prompt is not copyrightable. I mean, and then the information that the AI delivers to you or produces from the prompt is not copyrightable. However, if you submit, you know, I've written several scripts. If I submit a screenplay, and I have, to an AI, assist platform, and say, "Here's my screenplay. Please change this one character from a female to a male, and change the background of this character to this," and you know, uh, and it changes the screenplay. That screenplay is still copyrightable to me, and and it really depends on how much is changed, how much the human author contributes. So that is the key, and that's really the argument. So what happened recently? The Supreme Court said, no, we're not changing this lower court's decision, and that was the D.C. court saying, if it's basically stuff that's created by AI, it is not copyrightable. That's what the lower court ruled. So there's nothing's changed. We're not even going to, listen to the same arguments again. But really, so what's now it's boiling down to. So nothing's changed with that decision, other than now people are focusing on more how much human control or input counts as authorship, and how do you prove that contribution? Well, to me, you can prove it by what that you've created, what you've input into the AI. But anyway, what are your thoughts on how much human input is needed to count as authorship, David?
If it's a full-length movie and you're doing segment by segment and you're adding creativity, so you're basically creating a screenplay and turning it into a movie, that would be copyrightable because it's more than just like a single prompt. It's a play-by-play type of thing where you're changing things as you go, you're editing, you're adding your creative input to it. So that makes it copyrightable. But if you just say make a movie doing of Wesley Snipes doing something, that's not copyrightable. This is too simple. You have to have some extensive creativity there to show that it's unique to you. And that's a US rule. In Canada, the rule is actually quite thinner. So you could actually have a thin copyright in Canada, even on a phone book, which you cannot have in the US. So there you go. It's been like a hotly debated topic for the last 40 years. It's not just AI, it's how thin is your copyright.
Yeah, and Bradley, thanks for joining us. I'm going to go to in just a second. I just want to say quickly, right? The big argument now is if you have a prompt, hey, make a movie with Wesley Snipes as a bad cop. That's one thing. To say make a movie with Wesley Snipes as a bad cop from Pittsburgh, whose family has been killed by the mob and is currently working as a short order chef. I mean, if it's going to be, well, was that enough detail? And then people are going to add on a little bit more detail, a little bit more, and then it's going to be, well, I'm assuming it's going to be then, um, well, did they start writing it as a screenplay? Because because you might be able to copyright what you've input, but the screenplay may not be copyrighted when it's turned into something else. I mean, guess what I'm saying is the copy may be, because Brad, I want to get to you and say, if somebody says, hey, they list out a big description of a sculpture that they want to create, that long description may be something they can copyright, but yet when the AI creates the actual sculpture, is the sculpture copyrighted? But what were your thoughts on this? Thanks for joining.
Well, thank you. Well, you bring up a very good point. I was just going to say that if you write a prompt, then if it's your prompt, that's an original work and that's copyrightable. It's the product that is in question. You know what I mean? And what it really comes down to is attribution. The artist authorship's rights is what is always in question, and it's becoming even more relevant in galleries and museums and in the marketplace for fine art at auctions. Is this a real Renoir? You know what I mean? The attribution, and then, or if someone else did it. You know what I mean? And that's where the copyright law and AI get really muddled up, because first of all, AI is taking original work from artists from all over the world, you know what I mean, and then putting it into their storage and then letting people access it. That's a big issue. But getting back to what you asked me, Todd, um, making a sculpture, they have machines that make sculptures now. You know what I mean? You could carve an exact replica of Michelangelo's David or even Pieta in Carrara marble with a code. So would that final sculpture be considered an original work if you changed it a little, instead of David having David, the Michelangelo sculpture, David having a slingshot in his hand, having an iPhone in his hand? Would that make it an original?
Well, when you change them, it does in other instances. How much of a change is there to the original work? Because absolutely, we've seen. I think we saw Warhol do that, right? He would take copyright works, then make changes to them. But so yeah, it really it depends on how much. But I did like that I got right in front of you, didn't I, Brad? When I was thinking, yeah, the copy material may be copyrightable, but like you said, what's produced, that's another question. We need to get to our cases in a second. Arif, thanks for joining us. What are your thoughts on this?
Hey guys, yeah, I'll keep it short. I just think enforcement is going to be borderline impossible as the technology progresses, right? How are you going to be able to tell what was? I mean, it's just, we're at the beginning of it now. We can tell what's AI and what's not, but over time, it's like, well, what's percentage? I mean, how do you enforce it? I think a lot of people are going to cheat the system, and at some point, I think they're just going to give up and say, okay, well, everything is either copyrightable, or unless you can prove that you wrote it in a room without a computer, then how can you say that it wasn't copyright, right? It's going to be a big problem, I think.
Well, no, it's a big problem already.
Yeah,
And it's exact, and it hasn't even started. But before, and I know you want to go on, and this is a topic that I'm very engaged in over decades, because I've had some of my copyrighted materials misappropriated by big corporations. And just to scope it in real quick, the artist authorship's rights law in America became the VARA 1990 rights law, that is an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And And VARA is the acronym for Visual Artists' Rights. And in that law, in the copyright statutes, an artist actually has the certain artists with certain reputational artwork can disregard if someone alters their work in any way whatsoever and they don't like it, they have paternity rights and they could sue or they can withdraw their attributions from a modified work of art. And in regards to how in the domain field, and I'm working in this arena somehow with some of my own work, you know what AI cannot do? AI cannot register a domain name. And having a domain name with your name as the original, as a registrar, is a ICANN certified authorization of authenticity of attribution. And that's a powerful piece of paper that the domain name owner has that proves that they are the author of the name.
Yeah, so I think what you mean there is like obviously I think AIs now they can buy domains, but they can't own domains. I think what you're trying to say, like you can't have.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean. But it's that ownership that
yeah.
all the museums and the digital asset world now are the Bored Apes works of art. You know what I mean? NFTs now become more questionable, and I can registrar document predates NFTs, and that's kind of like the original digital art proof.
Well, digital art is art. It can't be copyrighted, so it doesn't matter if it's a board ape, but digital art can. And I wanted to say, sue. Yeah, you could sue people. Well, what was I thinking there? Yeah, this topic, we always talk about trademarks in this room, not copyrights. And the layperson sometimes can confuse. I want to copyright that when they mean they're going to trademark it and vice versa. But we're not going to go into.
I see that all the
I mean,
time. Todd, I just want to mention first. I just want to mention the last point. It could be what they were referring to for the prices is the change of tiers, right? So the NGTLDs, well, at least the first batch, they're allowed to put the different pricing tiers. They're not allowed to price domains individually. So like they can't say, oh, your domain is this, but they are allowed to change them over time. I know I had a conversation with Kevin Kopetz at one point. He said, yeah, no, at the next renewal, they could change the tiering of your domain. It doesn't happen very often. It happens so rarely. I didn't even think it was a thing. I didn't think they were allowed to do it. But no, Kevin told us clearly that a registry can change you from like a certain tier level of pricing to a different tier level of pricing, and then obviously if that tier itself changes at the next renewal with 6 months notice, you would be in a different category completely. So your domain could be standard pricing and go to a different premium tier. And what you're talking about is really interesting. It would completely change the viability of the first generation of NGTLDs. And again, I appreciate that rule. I like that rule. The only thing is that like you can't really change the rule because these people put in millions of dollars based on what they thought the pricing rules would be, right? So for the old generation of NGTLDs, the OG TLDs we're going to call them now? I don't know. It's going to be very hard to change that rule because it would make some extensions go from viable to unviable, and ultimately they don't want to make extensions unviable because if they fold, it looks bad for everybody.
You bring up a great point, and I'm going to bring it up with Jeff next week. And I think right, what Eric's talking about is the different tiers of domains a registry might have. Well, without going backwards now and talking about this, how many tiers are they allowed to have? And then when it comes to all these different tiers, when it comes to changing, what rights, what abilities do they have as a registry to change? What would really make sense is absolutely just charging, having no limits on what you can charge for a domain name, out of the registry, so you could have one domain at $20,000 and one name at $20,010, and then having a universal renewal across the board. But the registries don't like that, because we're never going to sell this for 20,000. We'd rather sell it, really sell it for 2,000, and then have a 2,000 renewal or 5,000 renewal, because once we got them and they build on it, like we all know, then you may have built on it or not, but you start loving the name and you want to renew it. All right, we're going to talk about that next week, because there's a lot of that nuanced stuff in that new registry agreement that needs to be clarified, just needs to be clear. And when they tell us one time, we'll understand it. They act like, well, this is for the registry, and then they got to tell the registrar before they make these changes. All right, well, what's the deal? So they can make any changes, but they need to say, are there any limits to all these different tiers? Just be clear. And I'm sure probably isn't that agreement. It's long. I didn't go through the whole thing, so I will by this time next week. All right, so our first case today is sabre.ai, and I'll tell a little bit about the case, and I'm going to throw it to you, David, so we can get through these pretty quickly. sabre.ai. The complainant in the case is Sabre, Sabre Inc. Out of, where are they out of? I don't even know. It says, I see that they're represented by Fish and Richardson. So I don't know where they're out of. It looks like it's a foreign company, but anyway, they must be on sabre.com, because I went to sabre.com, and that is the travel transport technology company, and they're talking about AI. They love AI. Okay, so they were all over this thing, so you can imagine the respondent in this case, Igor Gabrielin, who was represented by John Berryhill. So John represented this first respondent. He's going to represent our third case as well. So he represented Igor in this case. It was a 3-member panel. Alan Limberry, friend of the show. I know Alan. He's the chair in this case. Richard Hill, and then Asin Alexiev is the wings, is what they call them. But anyway, so it's a 3-member panel. John's representing the domain owner. This company, SABRE, is going after the name sabre.ai. John is, as a pretty standard defense for a respondent. David, why don't you go into the complainant's position and the respondent's position, and then give us the decision.
It was interesting that complainant said, hey, sabre is not an American English word. But John responded, well, Igor is not an American. So it's English as far as he understood it. And that was good enough for him to invest in it. But yeah, sabre is a sword. It's the name of a jet in the Netherlands, I believe. And it's used in thousands of businesses. If you go to Open Corporates, you can see 4,000 listings. If you update that to current active, it's much less. It's 2,100, but still, that's a lot of businesses using the name Sabre in a variety of industries and domain names. They actually, in the reply, they actually went through listing sabre.realestate, sabre.sk, .com, .sg, .us, and explain what each of these businesses do. And so it was a solid defense. It worked. Honestly, when I heard of the complaint, the travel company was the first thing that came to my mind, because that's the only Sabre I knew of. But my knowledge is, very limited. So it's mostly used outside of North America.
Yeah, but Americans spell most words end with ER. The rest of the world, most of those words end with RE. And also, sabre in French is sabre, the way it's spelled in the UDRP, SABRE. So there's much. It's a generic word in the rest of the world.
Yeah, and so they wanted a .ai. And so why does a travel company want an .ai? I think within a few years, every single business will be using AI in it, and I think they want to have a .ai just to signal, hey, we're with it. We're upgrading our services. Like if escrow had the .ai, they would probably be a lot more efficient I don't know if anybody heard Drew's complaints in the last week's show, but he had a lot of them. And I think a lot of them could be solved with local AI systems.
I want to listen to that, and
What do
we'll
you think,
talk
Todd?
about it next week. I look forward to hearing, what was he complaining about escrow, huh? Just what slowness because what not understanding the different parties, or briefly, what was that about?
He's not getting paid. Wrong brokers getting paid the wrong amounts, or not getting paid at all, or domain is not being paid for several months, and all of a sudden they find out, oh, why haven't you suspended the name yet? Why haven't you followed up? Oh, because we missed it. We're busy. Drew has 60 LTOs on at any given moment, and he's just one customer out of many. You cannot humanly monitor all of those failed payments and then flag everything. It's just too much for a human to do. And human brains now are not what they used to be 6 years ago or 7 years ago.
I can attest to that. Hey, okay, so I'm going to talk with Drew about that one because I created a whole escrow service that Jeff is providing, our colleague here, Jeffrey Neuman, through JJN Solutions, because a lot of attorneys provide escrow services. And I said, Jeff, no one, knows the business better than you. No one is honest, and many times people are unhappy with current escrow, and attorneys have the rights to, have these trust accounts, and really they can really, do obviously exactly what escrow.com is doing, a standard type of, escrow, which is really not even really escrow. And then because when I say that standard type of escrow, I'm getting off track here. What they're doing is they're accepting the money, but they're having the seller transfer the domain to the buyer. So the domain's not going in any type of escrow. And then what they do is they reach out to the buyer and say, did you get it? And then they release the money. So that's that standard type of escrow. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong and come in here and fucking do it.
No, that's been an issue I've had in a while too. Escrow.com is not a
Well,
real
the
true
real
escrow
escrow, their
unless you pay for
concierge service
the
is.
exactly.
And
That's double the
that's like
price.
one's like 3%, 2.5%, 3%, and the others I know their fees because I was telling Jeff we can provide that service for much less. We can provide a concierge service, true escrow, for what they charge for the standard service if we wanted, but then also charge a low fee if somebody is willing to just do, we'll escrow the money. Okay, so anyway, I look forward to, there's plenty of other brokers, and I know Jeff talks with Andrew as well because I know conversations that he's had with Drew about, helping us be an expert witness with regards to domain appraisals.
What are you talking about?
Huh?
Which Drew are you talking about?
Drew
There's a lot
Rosner.
of
David was saying you listened to Sherpa, and Drew had some complaints about escrow.com. I'm going to listen to it. I haven't listened to the last two, but yeah, I want to hear what's going on. Okay, so this case, Sabre, sabre.ai, was the domain name. This investor owns it. John Berryhill's representing. And the defense was basically, we know you're, well known. Apparently Sabre, the company, is well known. Of course, I've never heard of them until I typed in. I just typed in Sabre transport or travel, and it came up with the .com. So I assumed that was them because I didn't see in the case where it said this complainant is on the .com. Could have missed it. I missed some things, but anyway, by looking at their website, they're a travel website. They're using a lot of AI now, so I could understand, like David said, why they would want the .ai. And even if every company is going to be using AI in the future, and they may want to put it in their domain name, some companies are like, hey, this is just too good of a name, and plus, you like to have sometimes two avenues on your website. Go this way for our full AI features, and you have a nice exact the domain name. Anybody with a .com that's in AI would probably love to have the .ai. This name was listed for $300,000, and that's what the complainant pointed out and said, hey, they're targeting us because otherwise who's going to pay that much for it? And the domain owner was like, through John, this is not uncommon. We have a lot of AI names, and we price them accordingly. The single word that's used by a lot of companies, and they brought up in this case a lot of other domain investors, buy names like this, not just companies have trademarks with it. So the panel did say, yeah, it is confusingly similar, because we do have to throw out the extension, and sabre is sabre, so it is, similar. But the respondent showed through John, that sabre, S-A-B-R-E, and I know you said theater. Think about that. That's usually spelled with R-E, even here in the U.S. Even us fucking morons do. So it's a common English word. Proved that pretty good. He's a domain investor. Has quite a few dictionary words in .ai. What was, I think, important here, the panel rejected the complainant's reliance on willful blindness, because the complainant said, this guy's just not checking to see that we have this trademark. He should have done some research. And the panelists referred to WIPO's 1999 report, the one way back, where it says, there's no general duty to run a trademark search for dictionary words in this context. Okay, so last week we talked about it. Is there a duty? I asked Josh. Josh said on Thursday, as a domain investor, no, there's no duty. Well, WIPO report said the same thing about dictionary words. So don't get it, twisted. Dictionary words, you may not have a duty to run a trademark search. But if it's a fanciful word or some made-up word, many panelists feel like you do have a duty, and we saw rulings last week where they transferred it away. So you get mixed signals, but if it's a dictionary word, you're really obviously in a stronger position. But we're going to see later on, sometimes a short acronym, you think you're in a strong position, just like a dictionary word. I feel like 3-letter, 2-letter, those should be strong. You should have a strong defense if you're a domain investor, because it's an acronym or dictionary word. Not always. So anyway, the panel held that the respondent did have rights and legitimate interest in this name. So obviously he gets to keep it. You go to the bad faith, and he really don't even need to rule on this, but there's no targeting anyway, no evidence. So really the complainant failed on elements 2 and 3. The complaint was denied, and there wasn't an RDNH finding. Do you recall why there wasn't in this case? David, did they even mention why there wasn't? No.
No, and I know that John Berryhill generally does not ask for RDNH, which may or may not be okay, but in this case, it doesn't matter. But in one of the other cases we're going to discuss, it may have made a difference, but I think other factors also made a difference.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd, I won't ask him today because obviously you guys are cut for time, but just make a note to, I'd like to have that question discussed in a future episode of, asking for RDNH or not. Does it change anything in terms of the probability of a result or not? I don't know. I'm curious why he wouldn't. Like, there's obviously a reason, but I'm kind of curious why he wouldn't.
Yeah, and he doesn't, like David said, that often, and still gets that ruling. So we'll certainly ask Jeff as a panelist. I mean, it's not, I guess it's sort of like, yeah, if they would have just brought it up, I would have thought about that. Was this an abuse of the process? But I think John is assuming too. Maybe should have invited John and Karen in here today. It's fucking busy. Not that they would come, but one of them asked too. One of them would have come, because they're both part of the third case. That I think, boy, I know they don't agree on the decision on that third case. It's obvious, but
because ultimately there's no financial punishment, right? So RDNH and RDNH, it doesn't really change too much, except for just makes the complainant look bad, right? But there's no financial penalty, so maybe that's why.
So I asked Claude, how, let's talk about the HCL case while we're talking about right now. So John did not ask for RDNH there. The case was lost. HCL stands for hydrochloric acid. There are 3 hydrochloric acid suppliers in Anguilla, and it's a .ai. But they said no, .ai stands for technology company, and they should have known about this Indian company. It's a technology company that also is incorporated as HCL America. Apparently they have a US division. I don't know. I think they did some funny business with their trademark applications and the complaint. But like there's thousands of companies with their names HCL, 3 letters in their name. 1,350 some are actually active currently. So Claude said, well, why don't you ask for RDNH? You should have asked for RDNH. And maybe maybe there's been some decisions where that I may move the needle, but I have never seen that make a difference.
Well, David, let's
fact,
not confuse the
sometimes it
HCL case.
backfires.
That's a case that's really interesting. Right now, we're still on Sabre. It was complaint denied. John didn't request the RDNH, reverse domain name hijacking, and it wasn't ruled on. But I mean, anyway, Brad, did you have some comment you wanted to say?
Did the domain owner try to contact sabre.com, or
No.
sabre.com just realized when they wanted to get it that it was already taken?
Yeah, that's basically
So it wasn't targeting.
He wasn't. He didn't go after him. He claims, yeah, he wasn't aware, and because it's a dictionary word, the panelist said he doesn't need to be aware. He doesn't have a duty of checking to see who's on, and we're assuming, and he did mention, there's plenty of companies that use it, and there's plenty of domain investors who like the word as well because it's registered in other extensions. So, so we can move to our next case.
But would it matter if he knew that it was trademarkable?
Well, I was going to say, well, it could matter, and I say it depends because no, you're allowed to know the name that you have has trademarks on it. That doesn't mean you're registering it in bad faith because you know of a trademark using that name or or part of it.
Right. Well, that was my question. So even first of all, the decision here is really advantageous for domain owners, right? You can own a generic word that someone's using, but if you have it in a different extension, then you have rights to it, generally speaking.
In a dictionary word, say you need to respond. You're the domain owner. You need to respond. And then if you have a good lawyer like John, he's going to add that in, meaning it's a dictionary word, and you got to add evidence too to say, not here's how common of a word it is, and it's in this many dictionaries. But then also it's used by several other companies. It's used, it's a common word. Dictionary words, like we say, are different than made up words, combinations of words, those portmanteaus and all that stuff. Because when you do register one of those or a combination of two words, red owl, whatever that one you have is a which one do you have? Red coyote? What do you have, Arif? Just so I can see how good my memory was. Red.
Or how about if they had Sabre agent, right? That would be what you're talking about.
Exactly. Which one do you have, Arif? You own a name, Red something, Red Animal.
No, I know. Last time I think I used the example Red Fox. I really didn't use one of mine.
You don't have Red Fox. That's my guy. All right.
I've read Hexagon or Red Octagon. Red Hexagon, I think it is.
Okay, yeah, drop that.
Whatever.
Okay, so okay, let's get to our next case. We got to get out of here. Antigravity.org is our next case. Well, this is a pretty cool case because this is classic domainers. You guys will understand this one. The name antigravity.org, that's the disputed domain name. Google is the complainant here. Josh Walker. Josh, you in the room anywhere? He's the guy who registered the name. He registered it on November 18th, 2025. It was right before Thanksgiving. He's thinking, and Google announced on that day, we're going to launch this product. It's this AI, agent, anti-gravity. And this guy immediately, they're on antigravity.ai. Probably I don't know who has the .com. I should check. Who cares? But anyway, so he did it right on that day, just like a lot of us do. You hear something, you run to your computer, you step on tails of animals, and you can register whatever. You can't believe, who's stupid now? He's like antigravityai.org. It's available. He got it. Probably went out and had a beer afterwards. But anyway, so this was a 3-member panel, and I bring it up because I wanted to mention the panelists' names: George Nahichevansky, Ho Hayam Nam, and Eduardo Magales Machado. It's fucking awesome. Huh? That sounds awesome, huh? 3 amigos.
You did a great job, man. Those pronunciations.
Okay, so these 3-member panel: George was the chairman, and so the complainant's position, that's Google saying, hey, we launched this, but we actually trademarked it before we even launched it. We made the announcement on November 18th because we were doing some business as it, and people already knew. And I bring that up because the panelists said that Google did have a common law trademark, even though they only had done some filing for trademark applications because they hadn't been approved yet. But David, I wanted to ask you, I read in here, it says they had a, based on a trademark filing in Tonga. Now they also did the EU, Canada, and UK and all that, but first they did Tonga. Why would Google register anti-gravity, the term, in Tonga first? Is there something I'm missing? Maybe is like an easy way to get an application approved?
They would. A lot of big companies tend to file in jurisdictions where you cannot search for trademarks on their database. So there's like 4 or 5 countries around the world where big companies will file, and there's no trace of it online. You have to be there, you have to go through the books and flip the pages to see what's been filed recently. And so that's their strategy for keeping things under wraps, because they're public companies and they're worried about making 10K filings. They don't want to announce anything, so they try to keep it quiet.
Yeah, and the same island countries, they have like these just many countries have treaty sort of agreements for trademarks between countries, or like there's the central sort of some agreements. And so yeah, exactly that, they shield themselves like that. But also it's just the timing also does matter, right? I forget what the term is, anticipatory or whatever it is. If the timing is a little bit too coincidental to really believe, I mean, there is an argument in terms of the complainant that they can make, because I know a lot of this happened with oh gosh, I don't even remember what it was. Libra, was it? No, what was the crypto that Facebook was leading? All the other big companies kind of fell apart. Libra?
I think so. Libre.
Llama?
No, I think
It was Libra, but the thing is, there's a lot of companies with the name anti-gravity. They already have registered trademarks. There's battery business. There's
but you combine the AI. You combine the AI and the timing. Now you're starting to stretch it again. Like you could justify it.
Well, there's more to this case. So let me tell you guys more about this case. So the owner of the domain name did everything wrong that he could possibly do wrong. He built a site right away, and he impersonated Google. It actually says on the bottom of the page, copyright Google LLC, and he uses the Google anti-gravity logo. Even if it was AI generated, they made a big deal out of that because of the impersonation aspect. I think that was what really hurt this guy. So had he, put up a site saying, this is how you can use anti-gravity, I love it, I've been using it, and then have clear banners on the top and bottom saying, hey, this is a fan site, we're not affiliated with Google whatsoever, I'm the owner, and put his name there. That would be, closer to the passing the Oki data test. But this guy did nothing correct. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
David,
that's really, really bad. I mean, everything. Yeah.
If he would have this is the .org. If he would have put, I'm giving classes, I'm not related to Google, I'm going to show you how to use it, how I use it. Right, there are ways to be able to own this domain name and not infringe. Do it in a a fair use type of way. They would still go after him too, I'm certain, if he had a class saying that. But you really have to have disclaimers, have a real product, and you need some smart panelists who are more like trademark judges. It's no such
even then, as a domain investor, if somebody took it away, because again, it's not anti-gravity, it's anti-gravity AI, right?
Sure.
So that changes things a bit.
Right. Okay. That was on that date, and he had all this Google stuff on his site, so that was an easy transfer. I wanted to say we're getting to our last case. It's just going to take us 10 or 15 minutes because it pisses me off. But Suresh Chokera said in the chat, or in the thing, he said, the UD rug pull must be addressed, brother. Hey, brother, what's up? And I did talk about it at the beginning. Not going to get back into it, but yeah, I do think it was a bit of a rug pull. It's not complete bullshit because a company can be allowed to shift, but yeah, I think it's definitely, I'm on the customer side here that, hey, we were doing all this. So it's not just, investing in these names that are risky. we were supporting the company, and for you to shift like this completely, one, you can still, I don't know, I mean, I guess the marketplace is down at UD with regards to these Web3 names. You know, they could still support them in some sense, but I don't know, you know, I never did buy any Web3 name. If I did, but you know, I'd be really pissed thinking even if I bought one dot crypto or one dot wallet back in the day, I knew already. I already said, listen to the show earlier and then join us on Thursday on the DNX show, which is 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. We talk about domain investing. I'm going to talk about it there. I'll have gathered my thoughts, but yeah, I'm on the side of the customers of thinking, hey, you fucking, you know, it's not as cut and dry as, hey, we're just shifting and we no longer support. It's just like, you know, buying a bunch of machines and now we no longer support them. Okay, we don't have parts to those machines anymore, and plus, we're not going to help you resell those machines. Okay, well, I'd be
I'll,
really PO'd. Okay, what do you want to say? Go ahead.
I'll do my ranting on Thursday, but I'm just going to say, if you guys listened to me 3 years ago, I said there's no way this does not happen. There's just no way it could be avoided. It's just the supply and demand. Anyways, I'll rant about it on Thursday. But I mean, like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's as clear as day
Well,
that
and
this
then
would happen.
I can't wait
Clear
until
as day.
Saturday too. We'll have a chance to talk to Ish about. He was always telling you .eth people, stupid. Why are you buying that stuff? Never said much about all the
No,
fucking morons buying the dot whatever through Unstoppable. Now, of course, um, like I mentioned earlier in the show, some guys there I like, Brady specifically, you know, fantastic. Others I didn't think were, you know, sharpest tools in the shed. I don't know. But the point is, they're allowed. I like, you know, when somebody says, do they have the right to do what they're doing? Yeah, it's a private company, but they raised money. You know how hard it is to raise money to start a company? You still have to convince. So if I was somebody who invested a lot, and somebody I mentioned Drew Rosner, he seemed happy with the big shift. So if your investors are behind you and they're like, hey, we invested money, unless you get this boat, bail the water off the fucking boat and get this thing sailing properly, um, I'm going to be unhappy. So they had a chance. Who you make happy here? The investors. And it seems like, well, I know one, he posted, Drew Rosner was happy with what they were doing. So it still doesn't mean that, okay, so a lot of the supporters who they put in more money, all these people buying these names, they spent more money than a lot of the investors had put into the company collectively. I know that. So, but anyway, like I said, it's an interesting topic, and it's unstoppable domains. Anyway,
important. It's important to note. It's all I'll say that Drew is also an investor in Unstoppable, right? So it's just important
yeah,
to note that.
that's what I said. That's why I said he's behind. He says he's okay with it. So I'm saying if your investors are saying they're okay with it, well, all right. I'm sure that makes Unstoppable happy. They're disregarding the hundreds, I mean thousands of people. I see all the names on here on X, all the people that have these .crypto extension names in their fucking X handle that I knew. They got these from Unstoppable. They have Unstoppable rooms still. I hear but they were offering these extensions recently. I'm just saying, yeah, this to me is like those NFT projects. Well, we've shifted now. We're no longer going to use paradise.com, and we're no longer going to our whole thing, our goal of having a monetize it in this fashion. We've decided we're not going to monetize it now. Yeah, that whole time I'd be pissed. I'm one of these just a customer, and they say, "Well, sorry, we had to make this shift, otherwise the boat was going to sink." And I see a lot of comments, people saying, "Well, it wasn't going to be around then." Well, then sometimes you're like this. I know that some people I don't like. Yeah, then I'd rather you not be around. Get out of the country. Don't screw me, and then still come sticking around the party. But that's not. There's a couple sides to this. There's more to it because I could certainly, like I said. Um, argue for what the company's doing, what Unstoppable's doing, telling everybody, sit on this, spin around if you don't like it. All right, so we're going to our last case so we can get out of here today, kids. Last case, we're really going to piss you off. It's hcl.ai. Okay, so this is the domain name, 3-letter acronym. It's HCL entities. It's like 3 big companies. I guess they're big. I don't know them. But they go after Narendra, who is a domain investor. Guy's slick. I really like him. Lives not far from me. So only met him once or twice at some of our meetups when we do them here in the Valley. I'm talking about Los Angeles. Yeah, it's burning up today. But Narendra, smart guy, tons of great names. He picked up hcl.ai June 24th, 2024 at a public Namecheap auction for $1,502. Okay, so he had John representing, John Berryhill again, and this was a 3-member panel, and on the panel was, I don't know, I have it here, but I know Karen was on there. Karen was one that Karen Bernstein was, I'm sure, I think she was just probably one of the wings. She wasn't the chair. But anyway, all 3 panelists.
There was
Go ahead.
yeah, there's one European guy and a Korean guy as the panelists.
Well, what's frustrating here is the name was transferred away, and this is a domain investor. He has a right to be a domain investor. You said it, Dave. HCL stands for hydrochloride or something. Hydro, I think so. But
Hydrochloric acid.
Yeah, it has, and there's several companies that could use HCL, and there's going to be several future companies that could use HCL. And basically the complainant said, this guy invests in .ai names. This is an AI company. He should have known, and he's done this before. He's a big domain investor, so they're saying he's been part of UDRPs before, not successful. So we believe. Well, David, I'm going to ask you. The panel said, they found, sufficient evidence that HCL had a strong reputation in the IT and AI world, and at the time the respondent got the name, at that auction in June 2024, and as a domain dealer, he should have known about it, and they do believe, he just being a domain investor, not legitimate, not really legitimate rights. And then, of course, they ruled also, it has to rule bad faith registration. And they say, yeah, he acquired it absolutely in bad faith to capitalize on HCL's mark. Well, tell me, good decision, bad decision? What's your take?
Bad decision. I never heard of this complainant. In fact, there was more than one complainant. They ganged up on him. There was this HCL technology out of India, another HCL America out of California, and they were trying to say that they have different names, that they're like all the same company, but they're not. And it's a mess. But you know what? They said that there was a problem because they claim they make websites. I never heard of them. They're not a big company. Like, put your if you agree with me, put your thumbs up. Like, you never heard of them. So anyway, yeah, there's thousands of companies that use name HCL. There's 3 suppliers in Anguilla for HCL, and there's a lot of companies around the world that just supply globally. I've sold glycerin.ca. These type of generic terms actually sell to the chemical companies. So why would this website development company think that they deserve this hcl.ai? Well, because they have a .com and they want the .ai. It seems like that's a trend.
Well,
what do you think, Todd?
I'm gonna ask John. I do talk to him every once in a while. I'll email him if he doesn't pick up. And that Karen, I'm gonna talk to her sometimes. I'm on Zoom calls with her. What were you thinking, Karen? I mean, I'm of course siding with the domain owner on this. What's the story? This is freaking ridiculous. The guy's a domain investor. This is exactly as if one of us, I felt like if I owned hcl.ai and I own a couple 3 letters, when I say a couple, I mean one. Okay. This is a name that I would buy and think, yeah, I'm safe. And not only am I safe, I'm pissed that they filed this. Now I had to spend some money on John to represent me. I'd use Jeff and hope he wasn't assigned the case, as the panelist. But the thing is, this is a case that was just flat out ruled wrong. I mean, all throughout. And like I said, they said that the for sale status in this context indicates an intent to capitalize on the value of HCL's mark. Well, I could understand if that was that Don Osborne, somebody who just always on the side of the brand and doesn't like domain investors. But I'm surprised Karen didn't dissent, at least. I mean, even if she was like, I don't agree with it. But I'd like to hear we only see the summaries. There may be something more. I don't see that he reached out, and I'm sure Narendra didn't do. The guy's smart, I mean, I know that for a fact. Had a conversation with him 4 years ago, and I thought, this fucking guy is smart. He lives close by me. I said, we need to get together. He goes, yeah, call me. Anyway, real slick and great domain investor, and loses the name. So I'd love to hear, I'm certain, I'm guessing if I asked John, what do you think that happened? He'd say, because they're fucking idiots. No, I don't know if he'd say that. But I know he certainly can't be happy with this decision. hcl.ai is as a representative of the domain owner. There's some cases where you're, and we talk about this. I remember having a conversation with Jason Schaefer about sometimes you take on a case and you realize, boy, if you get the wrong panelists and they look at a couple pieces of evidence or some things, and it could go the other way. This one, I don't think, any of us, when I see it, hcl.ai, and I saw who the domain owner was, I thought, certainly, I know he's going to have a good defense. He's going to defend himself. He's going to respond and say why he had it, and he has many similar names. So why a panel of three would, they said evidence shows HCL was widely recognized. So
Do you think that, because I'm looking, there's other hcls.org and stuff. Do you think that because it is a six-figure name, right? It could be, or probably is, and it was just sitting on a parked Afternic page, that had anything to do with it, with respect to if he built out just a landing page and had it open up to being available for other usage, do you think that would have made a difference?
Okay, in this case, probably not. But what was instrumental, they were saying that because of .ai, this guy should have known about this big brand that's supposedly in the top 500 or something in the tech space, which I never heard of, and I think is totally bogus. But that evidence was put forward and asserted in this complaint. And so the panel said, well, if it's a widely used acronym plus an industry relevant TLD, then you have to know the trademark issues and check for tech companies. And they used Narendra's experience in investing .ai domain names as some sort of indication that he would know about all the AI companies that are in existence currently, which makes no sense. And this company was not really an AI company, it's just a website making company, and they use AI. But I think by 2030, every single company will use AI in some way, from engineering to medical, chemical suppliers, every one of them.
Do you think that the experience that the domainer who owned it, his experience worked against him?
Yes, it did. Specifically, it says so in the decision. So if he had a landing page that had some sort of chemical calculation device or algorithm for using hydrochloric acid, mixing it with whatever to do different tasks, that might have been legitimate use that would probably have saved the day. But because he didn't do anything with it and just had the GoDaddy Inquirer form, that was a problem. In 2022, the prior registrant had it for sale with $9,000 price tag, and they said that was bad faith targeting. But that wasn't even Narendra; that was the prior owner.
David,
Anthony,
they probably assumed. The panelists probably assumed that since Narendra is a Desi name, that Narendra has taken a crosstown trip across a tier 2 or a tier 3 city in India in the last 3 decades, in which case they would have seen a billboard for HCL, because HCL is a huge company in India. It's also a body shop, so they do a lot of hiring. So it's very much in the common lexicon that HCL can only be associated with one company. And I would not be surprised if the US-based HCL is a corporate group partner of the HCL named in India. I've tried to put some software development and CRM work into them about 20 years ago. And when I started communicating with their sales reps, I was surprised to see that all of them were using Hotmail email addresses. For a tech company, that was very strange because I didn't know if all the people who I was dealing with actually worked for HCL or if they were third-party uh, brokers or salespeople trying to work off a commission. But still, the name of HCL is tremendously popular, and I think this was a correct decision.
Well,
Well,
here's the thing.
hold on.
Can you have a geo sort of like, oh, you should have known in India, but it's a .ai, which is Anguilla? Like, I know people use the .ai generically now, right? But it's still theoretically a TLD, right? A ccTLD. So I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of moving parts of this one that's really kind of interesting that, again, like, I'm just surprised that the .ai, again, it's Anguilla. So why would the geo relevance of India be
Well, he's
imposed
he's
here?
saying he's saying that because Narendra is an Indian name,
Narendra is a Desi name.
yeah, and
But
it's
but
popular there.
but if the company's only popular in India and is only based in India and has no operations in Anguilla, I mean, yeah, again, like .ai is used generically, but legally it's still a ccTLD,
Sure, but the
right?
Anguilla
So the
thing is
relevance.
over with. Everyone knows there's no .ais in Anguilla. But they know .ai is now just it's like a .com.
No,
If you know that, I mean, we know it's a
no, no.
ccTLD, but still, so there's just
It's
bringing up
purpose. I
Anguilla
get it.
means absolutely nothing other than if somebody asks what is
Well,
the country
but
code
legally
that
it's
is.
still, there. You know what I mean? Like, what you can make the argument. I would
It
think.
just,
Like, to me,
but
that would make
Anthony made
sense.
some good points. But Anthony, I don't agree with you. Do you think it was a good decision? Yeah, good points. But still, the panel, all three of them said we agree. That's an acronym HCL. It's just adding it with the .ai makes it pointed towards targeting this company. And so they just made the leap that said, hey, this company is definitely has an AI uses AI, or they even talk about in the future it makes sense for them to go into that field with what they're currently doing and then exploring or using AI in their current services and products. So anyway, I
But,
thought it was a bad decision, but okay. So and you said it was an okay decision. Now it's still a generic. It's a three-letter. They agreed it's an acronym. What the panelists don't know is .ai is the second most popular extension in the aftermarket, and that's why us as domain investors buy it. And Anthony, I'll say one more thing. Well, actually two. One is that he is allowed to know of that trademark owner. And the final thing, and then I'll send it to you, is I heard there was a big fire in Midtown today in Manhattan. Did you see it, and what's going on?
No, I'm just scraping myself out of bed.
Okay, well, I'm glad you joined us here. Listen, I was trying to get out of here early today so we could all. I thought Domora or Doma Protocol was having their first podcast, and I think they did. Maybe they had it at noon. They said 1 p.m. Pacific. They might have already had it. Maybe it's over. See if I can catch it on a replay. We have a busy day today, so we're going to cut out now. I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. We're here, Domain Name Law. Next week, I've written down a lot of notes that we want to cover, uh, and we're going to talk, like I said, on Thursday, the Domain Investing Room with Josh, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, loaded with topics there. That can be domain news. We'd like to have it related to investing, and the UD situation certainly is related. A lot of people invested in these Web3 monikers, names. You don't want to call them domain names. There was a lot of people investing, and it is sort of not a complete rug pull, but yeah, it's like the person that sold it to you is turning away from supporting that type of stuff anymore. Okay, so
Well,
we'll talk about that.
I'll argue with you on that one
Yeah.
because you pay your money and you take your chances in this industry. And these were informed and educated investors, and it's too bad for them. But let's look to the future.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, I can make that argument too, and I agree with you there. But it's almost like when someone does do that, like in these NFT projects, and you're informed and you took a chance. It still doesn't mean you don't have to be mad, thinking, I know I took a chance, except I just didn't think it was going to end like this. And you're like, well, I hope you learned
It could
something, and that's
only
what
have ended
that's
like
what we're going to
this.
be left with. They're going to be left with, I hope you learned something, But still, when the people are usually the people just vanish. Now, when you go to events and like people, they're still there. Like, hey, sorry that happened to you. I think it just need to be more sensitive to all of the past supporters, and maybe they are. I've only seen a couple expos. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us wherever you're at. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your evening, wherever. We'll see you this time next week, and we'll also see you on Thursday for the DNX show. Take care.
Thanks for news and information, guys. Great as usual. Thanks.